All right, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for taking some time to join us today. We're going to be talking about the American Rescue Plan Act. It's kind of an overview of where things are at and kind of where we think they're heading. We've got a couple of great speakers lined up. And then as we move into things, we're also going to take time to answer questions, talk to some directors that have been successful, see where it goes from there. So kind of just brief introductions here from the executive committee. I'm Jenna Pollock. I'm the current president of the County Conservation Directors Association. Will, if you want to introduce yourself.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Will Horsley. I serve director of the Clay County Conservation Board and look forward to continuing my service to the Directors Association.
Kate.
I'm Kate Zimmerman. I'm the director for Ringgold County Conservation and serving my second term as the secretary treasurer of CCDA.
Thank you. And Tom, do you just want to introduce yourself with the mute all button and all that?
Sure. Hi, Tom Hazelton, CEO of Iowa County Conservation System. Thanks everybody for joining this important discussion. And I know there's some good stories to be told because I've been hearing them. So I look forward to hearing all about things today.
Thank you. So as we continue forward, in case anyone else just hopped on, this is being recorded. So just be cognizant, please leave your mute button on unless we ask you to speak. And we're going to be taking questions throughout the program. Feel free to just jot those on a piece of paper until we get to those sections. So like I said, we've got a couple of great speakers lined up. Danny Cashman with the Iowa State Association of County Government Relations is going to be talking kind of where we go from here. Paul Berland with Northeast Iowa Resource will also be speaking. And then I think we've got 3 or 4 directors that we know have been successful with sharing that with us as well. So without further ado, Jamie Cashman, if you want to kind of give us a little overview of what you're seeing at your level and where we go from here.
Okay, very good. Go ahead.
Jenny, if I could just cut in here quick. You were cutting out a little bit. So my guess is that we need to shut down any videos that aren't speaking parts, because that cuts into the ability for the speakers to talk sometimes when you have large crowds. So if you're not speaking, please shut off your video and then I think we'll be fine. So go ahead, Jamie.
All right. Well, thank you, Jenna. Thank the rest of the executive board and the rest of the directors and Tom for having me again today. I don't know if you want me to do a 101 again, like I had talked about before. I'm going to spend a majority of my time today talking about where we are. Just briefly, in terms of the major categories and what I'm hearing from other counties on a variety of different projects. Obviously, the biggest is on COVID-19 response and mitigation, and that covers a whole host of different things. From improvements to public health and to vaccine distribution and PPEs to improvements in the courthouses and so forth in terms of increasing public distancing, and then technology upgrades, and then digitizing of records. And then there's a whole host of other things too in regard to tourism and economic development for those entities within your county that were affected as a result of COVID-19. And then lastly, but certainly not least, is on parks and recreation, and hearing of a variety of different projects. And I'm really, as was mentioned earlier, I'm really looking forward to hearing about the projects that you are looking at or have already invested those dollars. To give you a broad overview of where we are statewide. So again, all 99 counties have agreed to participate in ARPA, and that is to the tune of $612 million. Now, all of Iowa counties should have received their first half of that 612, and then you will receive the second half of the second allocation 1 calendar year after. And so what we have from ISAC have encouraged for counties to form their own work groups, to get all the agency heads together and basically come up with your wish list, of things and projects that you would be interested in investing in those dollars. And I literally do this every day, talking to either individual work groups from counties or supervisors or agency heads, department heads, and so forth. And so I'm more than happy to meet with all of you today to answer any of your questions. Probably, I know the multi-million-dollar question that I'm going to get is in regard to county or trail development. While it is fairly clear in terms of parks and recreation and what we're seeing, investments in nature centers and improvements to county parks in terms of bathrooms, water, wastewater, drinking water treatment, and so forth. Again, trails is still kind of a gray area, but when we look into the interim rule, the interim final rule that basically has been the overarching guidance that we've received from the Treasury, it really it makes it fairly broad in terms of what is considered outdoor spaces. And so what we have read, and it says the interim final rule provides a non-exhaustive list of eligible services to respond to the needs of communities disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. And recipients may identify other uses of funds that do so consistent with the rules framework. For example, investments in parks, public plazas, and other public outdoor recreation spaces may be responsive to the needs of disproportionately impacted communities by promoting healthier living environments and outdoor recreation and socialization to mitigate the spread of COVID-19. So while it doesn't explicitly say in the interim rule and in the Q&As, it doesn't prohibit it. So as long as you can come up with language, and I can't stress this enough, specifically on trails, that when your county, when your boards of supervisors pass a resolution, and if your county is interested in making investments in trails, make sure that you have some sort of language in the resolution that ties it to COVID-19 response or mitigation. Just generic language. As a result of COVID-19, we've seen an increase in the amount of Iowans or citizens within our county that have utilized our trail system or our campgrounds or county parks for outdoor recreation, for further social distancing, as a result of COVID-19 and so forth. And so if you decide to go in that direction, and I know I've heard from supervisors that are very pro-trail, and I've heard of supervisors that would have some concerns about making those investments. I mean, that ultimately would come down to the boards of supervisors, but we're not making a ruling definitively either way. But in terms of guidance, if that is a direction that your county would like to invest in terms of trails, I would feel comfortable making that investment moving forward. Just like I've heard in terms of investments into the parks themselves for infrastructure and for things within the parks, the campgrounds, and so forth, the restrooms, I would feel very comfortable moving forward with that. We're still going by the interim final rule, of which originally came out in July, and we're waiting to get the final rule. But we aren't anticipating any major changes from what we've heard from our national partners. That as long, and we've heard this from Treasury, as long as you follow to the best of intentions, the original guidance that has gone out earlier this year, I would feel very comfortable in not having your county worry about having the federal government come back and take those funds back, as long as the intent was in regard to, again, COVID-19 response and mitigation. And that is the determine revenue loss. Those funds can literally be used for anything. So if there were to be a gray area and you would like a little bit more clarity, that if your county would determine that as a result of COVID-19, your county has experienced revenue loss, that literally can be used for any government service. But if you're just trying to use it with straight up ARPA funding that your county has received, I would feel very comfortable, just like you're making investments in your county parks and campgrounds and so forth. So again, briefly, the funds need to be obligated by the end of calendar year 2024 and expended by the end of 2026. The next reporting period to report back to Treasury will be, it actually was extended until the end of January. So that's another thing. If you're serving on your work group or working on reporting and so forth, hopefully we'll have soon basically a template report that will be easy for departments to plug in the numbers, or for counties to plug in the numbers of what they've expended so far. But again, it's all over the board. We've got some that their work groups have just started to meet. Some have obligated all their money in that of the first round, and some are just still trying to go with the projects, or trying to consider the eligibility of projects and seek input within the county, but I'm sorry, within the county government itself, but also then some are reaching out to nonprofits and to other entities within the county. So I'm trying to think, again, so you have my email there, and literally I do this on a daily basis, and I'm more than happy at any time, not only to meet with this group, but to meet with any of your individual work groups within your county to come up with, or to give you feedback on a list of projects that you would like. There's my email, but I'll also say that I will give you out. Actually, what I prefer is actually for people to actually call me, because more often than not, when I get emails, I have follow-up questions. And so it's probably the easiest. And so if anybody's got a pen handy, I'll give you my cell phone, and it's 515-210-9845. And then also we've done some upgrades to our website, and we also have a web page specifically for ARPA. We try to get that up to speed in terms of as additional information comes out. And so that's at www.iowacounties, all spelled out, .org. And you'll find a link for the American Resource Plan Act on that one. So please, or Rescue Plan Act, there's a page on there that you can click on for ARPA. And there's a couple of things, and then I can get this sent to you, Jenna. We're going to be having a joint we've hosted webinars from time to time, depending on different topics. So we're going to have one next week on December 14th with the League of Cities to talk about green infrastructure. A lot of it's going to be around wastewater and drinking water and so forth, but I won't be surprised if Parks and Rec comes up in the course of that. And so that's at 11 a.m. Next Tuesday on December 14th. And I'll send you a link, Jenna, that you can send out to the rest of the directors. And then also on December 14th, next Tuesday, NACO, our national partner, will be hosting a webinar, which they have from time to time, talking about leveraging, equitable, measurable, and sustainable solutions from ARPA. And so I would strongly encourage you to participate in that. And then also too, when you go on our website and you go on the American Rescue Plan Act page on there, there's also a link where you can sign on for support and get on to what we call it's called a base camp. I don't know if you utilize that, if the conservation directors have one, or if they use another medium as a public forum, but it's a really good public forum if you would have questions in terms of other counties. And it consists of, you name it, county auditors, county supervisors, other office holders, anybody that's interested, county budget directors and so forth. And we strongly encourage that conservation participates in that. And so if you go on the ARPA page on our website, you can sign up for that support to get on the base camp. And so I know I spouted off a lot of different things there, but I'm certainly open to take questions now or at any time.
Does anyone have any questions? You answered one for Mike Cox already about trails, so thank you.
Yeah, that's probably, Jenna, the number one question I have received. And I wish I could have been more definitive. But in terms of, what we have read and what we have gone through with the Q&As and the interim rule, there really isn't anything that precludes counties from doing it, but there's nothing in there that specifically says trails. But I know there's a lot of counties out there that are very, very interested in investing in trails. And again, I can't stress enough that as long as you tie this to COVID-19, and as a result of this, we've seen, increased usage of our trail system and the need to expand the trail system within our county and have that language in there, I would feel very, very comfortable. The other thing too is, and I can't stress enough with counties that I meet with and I talk to, is to think big. And that's why I'm incredibly excited to join you today, because I've heard of some major projects in terms of nature centers and even even trail projects and some other things too, investments in campgrounds. And the reason I say I'm so excited about it is, you can send this money out, counties can send it out in little dribs and drabs, and from 5 to 10 years from now, counties are going, well, what do we use that ARPA money for? Well, I certainly hope that when it's all said and done, you can point to that nature center, or you can point to that trail system, or you can point to the upgrades in the campgrounds that counties have invested in. And that's something not only because of the ARPA funding, that's something that you can build upon for years to come. And, I would be remiss to say that my other part of my majority of what I do, I'm the government relations director, and I really enjoy this part of my job because I know in about a month or so, I get to march up on the Hill again and to fight and to let all of you know, if you didn't know, that funding the trust is one of the top 4 priorities for ISAC again this year. And so we look forward to working with all of you again, and hopefully this year to get the ball over the goal line this year. But this is something, that could piggyback on top of ARPA, that if there could be some major investments as a result, some really good solid seed money in the out years, if we can finally get the trust funded, this is something that could be, generations down the road, and you will be able to say that you got it all started.
Jenna, I have a question for Jamie. This is Brian Lammers, Hamilton County.
Yes.
Some of these projects, for example, we were allocated funds from our county for a shower house building in one of our county parks. That specific building is a prefabricated building, which means there's limited companies that manufacture those buildings. We were told that because ARPA money funding requires 3 bids from every aspect of that project. So we have dirt grading as 1, foundation as 2, and the building is 3. So can you specify a little bit more on bid letting and the requirements for that for different aspects of the job with ARP funds?
Yeah, that's something that has come up, and I know it's a little bit different in terms of what we've been trying to define between what the Fed requirements are for bidding, and there's a list of things that go underneath that, and then how that would work with a state bidding requirements. And we're still, I hate to tell you this, I can't, we're in the midst of defining that right now. We've got an inquiry based on a meeting that I had last week with the county to further flesh out bidding and what would all be required either from the federal government or the state. And I think just on first blush is that you should follow at least, you know, what Iowa's bidding requirements are, just as a safeguard, but on all the other things and so forth, we're going to have to get something out further, Brian, about that. But just believe that we're working on that right now to further define that and get that out to everybody.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Jamie, this is Roger from Scott County. I was going to ask the same question, but I
Yep.
know our budget director is involved with that group, and
Yep.
the information that he has told us is that so far the rules are saying it has to follow federal procurement guidelines. So
That's correct. Yep.
which are a little different than the state guidelines. And I have to be honest, our county hasn't done much with federal funds, so I'm
Yep.
not real familiar with it, but most people who are familiar with it don't have much fun to say about it. So it is a process, but
Yep.
As people are moving forward, I would encourage you, especially if you want things like engineering to be covered by those funds, you have to start from square one, making sure that you follow those guidelines. Because even with FEMA, for those of us who've done FEMA, I've had FEMA engineering costs thrown out and not reimbursed because of a technicality of something you didn't follow in those federal guidelines. So it is something everybody needs to be aware of, and don't move forward on your project or do any approvals with anything until you understand those guidelines. So hopefully Jamie will get back with us with more definitive guidance on that.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, Roger. I just don't want to provide, there's a few things, on design work and so forth that, it certainly would be allowed and, in certain building projects. But the thing that we have heard definitively is that, you need to finish the project. You have to you can't just do a design and then go, okay, well, I guess that's not feasible. We're not gonna do it. But in terms of the other bidding requirements and so forth, we definitely want to be definitive once we get that from the federal government. And as Roger said, what he had mentioned, we have our own work group, ISAC does, and that consists of government officials, county officials throughout the state. And so Scott County's budget director, David Farmer, is a part of the group, along with officials from throughout Iowa, and we meet at least about every other week to hear from what they're hearing from within their county and from other counties and their affiliates and so forth. And yeah, as a result of that, bidding has now, as we've gone to the next phase about, okay, we're interested in funding this project or building this building and so forth. That is the next phase. And I promise you, once we get definitively, we'll get it out to everybody. Any other questions?
Jamie, do you know of any additional funds, like COVID relief funds, that might be coming down the pike yet?
Yes, I'm glad you mentioned that. So as I had mentioned before, the state is receiving their amount of ARPA funding as well. And also cities they're receiving their allocation. It's less than the amount that counties are receiving, but the state of Iowa is receiving $1.2 billion. And so yesterday, in fact, the state of Iowa announced a water infrastructure fund that they're creating, and using $75 million of the American Rescue Plan Act specifically for this. And then the Department of Agriculture is going to put in 25 million for a total of 100 million. And literally that came out yesterday. And so a variety of different things, water quality improvements. We're talking reduce excess nutrients, increase drought resiliency, reduce flood risk, improve public health, promote water and wastewater reuse, provide significant economic developments and or benefits, I'm sorry. And so there's a whole host of other things, economically significant projects and watershed project or protection projects and industrial water and reuse projects and pilot programs. So there could be some ways that your county could piggyback on what the state is providing in regards specifically on this program. Like I said, this doesn't go live until December 15th of next week, and then you'll be able to go on and find the application. One of the things, I don't know if it's a grant program from what I've read so far, if there'll be some sort of a local match. And so one thing for those that have dealt with federal programs, ARPA can't be used, state or for county ARPA can't be used for other federal programs such as CDBG or USDA programs or for other things. However, ARPA can be used as a local match for other ARPA funds. So if the state of Iowa, with the 100 million that they've announced, they'll be going out with this grant program. If they require a local match, that you could use a portion of that to provide that local match. But I don't know yet, Jenna, if there will be a match for that. And again, Jenna, I'll send, for those that don't get our, we send updates, government relations updates. So all the things about the webinar next week and some other information as well, specifically about this new program that came out, that's in our update that we put out today. And so I'll get that sent to you, Jenna, to get out to everybody else. And that'll contain all the information of which I talked about earlier.
Great, thank you. There any other questions for Jamie?
Well, no, like I said, I've given you all my contact information, and I do this literally on a daily basis. So if there's another time, not only with this group, but also with individual work groups within your counties, if you would like me to meet with any of them, I'm certainly welcome to do so. So appreciate the time, and I look forward to hearing about the projects that you're all working on. So thank you all.
Great, thanks so much, Jamie. We'll move right in. Paul Berland with Northeast Iowa RC&D. He's managing funds for 8 counties. And I was hoping you could just kind of speak briefly of how things are going, you know, things that you notice on your end.
Yeah, thanks, Jenna, and thanks everybody for having me today. Jamie did an outstanding job of doing the overall recap and providing some information there. We're asked by a number of our local counties in our area if we would help provide assistance to them with reporting, meeting facilitation for the department heads and others, helping them with revenue loss calculations, those sorts of things related to ARPA. And so we've been doing that now for a couple of months, and there's been throughout a pretty standard county desire to hear from all of the department heads within their counties, get everything down on paper, and then sort of try and divide funds from there moving forward. Which projects are most favorable for that particular board of supervisors to fund. And thankfully, in most of the counties that we're working with, conservation board projects or conservation department projects are jumping sort of at the top of the list in some of those counties. And so, from my standpoint, working with resource conservation and development, that's really exciting for us because it's a lot of the things that we like to partner with those counties on anyway. I know, and I don't know, Jenna, who you had intended to kind of describe their projects, but I know Barb with Winnebago County has heard she's getting a pretty good allocation. Dan, certainly Buchanan County's got an exciting project that's already been sort of approved through by the board, and so I maybe let them chime in on their projects. I don't want to steal thunder in that line of thought, but I think one other thing, and maybe Jamie can chime in on what he's heard on this, but one other thing to keep in mind is there was a bill introduced in the Senate that would provide additional flexibility to counties for their ARPA funds. It passed with unanimous consent in the Senate, and now there's a companion bill, actually the same bill in the House, the US House, and it has, as of yesterday, 126 co-sponsors, both sides of the aisle. So it's possible, I don't know what to expect from federal legislators from a day-in to day-end basis, but it seems likely that there's a good chance that will be passed, which at that point then would specifically make trails something that would be an eligible expense, along with a number of other infrastructure projects, as well as some general government spending, up to $10 million in a county, which is a majority of the county's entire allocations in Iowa. But just that's out there, and I don't know if that's going to impact your board of supervisors thinking in terms of how they want to allocate these funds. If that does go through, if now all of a sudden they see that as an opportunity to dump it all into roads and bridges or something else, just sort of a heads up that could be down the line. And maybe Jamie, you want to chime in if you've heard anything on that?
Yeah, we're obviously watching it very, very closely with our national partners, NACO. And that, like you said, it passed unanimously in the Senate. Now it's kind of in a holding pattern over in the House. And for those that are following things on a national level and what's happening in DC, everything is moving very, very slowly. There's that human infrastructure bill that they're waiting to take up. And so that kind of has slowed everything down. I have heard from other counties that are interested or have stopped work in terms of their work group, waiting to hear if this legislation will pass. And Paul, as you identified, it is $10 million that could be used, similar to if your county could prove revenue loss. And that could be literally used for any government service. So if there is a gray area about trail use and use of funding for trails, this would make it definitively that you could use up to $10 million of your allocation. And as you mentioned, Paul, a majority of the counties, this would cover literally everything, and it could be used for any government service. So we're really in a holding pattern. I really would hope, though, I guess if I'm giving any counsel to people, is to really move forward. If you've got some really solid projects that are out there, shovel-ready projects, especially, on conservation, I would say move forward on those and maybe kind of keep that in your back pocket for your second allocation. But to go ahead and budget and try to basically bet on that the feds are going to do something on that, I really would not want to slow down everything and the hard work that a lot of these work groups are doing, but that's the state of affairs on that bill.
Yeah, thanks, Jamie. That's what we've seen too. And thankfully, most of the counties that we're talking with, they want to go ahead and allocate their funds that they've got at this point to projects. And then, maybe a few of those projects that they've got that might be in that gray area, hold a little bit back in case they are granted some extra flexibility, or if additional clarification comes on those projects. But I don't really have much more to add other than what Jamie said, Jenna. Just basically, we've had really good, I think, good support from the boards of supervisors that I've been working with in terms of funding conservation ideas. But our directors in our area have put together some really strong, strong projects that they're proposing to them to utilize these funds. And so, we're just encouraging that and trying to provide any sort of assistance or guidance we can along that way. But
perfect. Thanks, Paul. I think several, across the state, several counties are utilizing RC&Ds, COGs to help with some of the facilitation. So I just kind of wanted you to be able to show that for those counties that might be struggling a little bit. It's a great resource to be able to lean on heavily. So thank you.
thank you.
Kind of moving into our county directors. We've actually got Scott Nelson up first. Scott, if you just kind of want to talk a little bit about your success with funds allocated to your nature center.
We'll give it a shot. How's that sound? Can you hear me?
Yep, you're great.
All right. Well, we spoke at the last directors meeting at ISAC and whatnot to kind of bring everybody up to speed on kind of where we were at and how we were doing it. And, we kind of hit the ball off early and whatnot because we'd had a good relationship with our board of supervisors. And they've been very supportive of our project and stood behind it. And for a number of years, which is part of the problem and whatnot, but ended up being a part of the solution also, because we did have a shovel-ready project that was ready to go, that already had, some financial backing to it on our part and some smaller grants. And then we were able to, the county finally kicked in and gave some money out of the reserves. They had to buy their reserves down. And then, ARPA came along and we, like I said, and it's been told to me a couple different times, was the, the long forged relationships that have happened throughout the years. And so ultimately, our board of supervisors allotted $1 million towards the Willow Lake Nature Center, and $500,000 this first procurement, and then $500,000 will be next June of 2022. And it's and that was pulled off right off the top, even before they went out and solicited different projects and everything from the rest of the county and whatnot. So lucky that way. We'll take luck any day of the week. And since then, that money, that influx of funding and whatnot from ARPA, ultimately led to is that we were awarded a $400,000 CAT grant. So it provided leverage, 7 ways to Sunday, and a couple other grant sources also. We have, kind of picking up of what was discussed earlier by Paul, we have leveraged and worked with our Golden Hills RC&D, and their staff members there and stuff have helped us write these grants and everything else, and kind of identify things where we can go and how we can go about doing it. So it's received a little bit of kickback, I guess, on the negative side. They kind of come out of the woodworks when you're talking about federal dollars coming down to the county. But it's a small group that kind of beats on the supervisor's desks and whatnot. But they'll blow their steam out here sooner or later. So that's kind of where we're at.
Okay, thanks, Scott. I'm stepping in. Jenna had to run out to the lobby at work there. And so next up, Dan Cohen, if you're on, you want to enlighten us on your projects.
Okey-dokey. So yeah, we went through the process as Paul indicated, where the department heads came up with lots of different plans. And I think what's been mentioned already by Jamie and Paul, I think the conservation aspects really lent themselves well to putting forth some pretty good arguments. In our case, it's kind of a full service campground, be full hookups with a shower house and a small playground area, all incorporated. They've thus far approved $782,000 to that project. And the arguments I think that can really be put forth is that it hits pretty much every aspect of what ARPA is all about, because there's water systems involved, drinking water, wastewater. There's the outdoor recreation aspect. There's the economic development aspect. There's a social distancing aspect. And so just, a check mark going down the list. A project like this really resonated well with ARPA and also with our board supervisor. They had some other big funding in the county. They bought a new building for public health and also might house emergency management. And they've got some other good projects in the works. But again, I think ours did well. And, our county gets a total appropriation of 4.1 million. So getting that first 792,000 was really good, I think. We also, where I think what was helpful too is this is our phase 2 of our master plan that was already adopted. And I think we talked a little bit about that at a past conservation directors meeting. But having a supervisor on our master planning committee gave us kind of a champion right off the bat too, that was interested in seeing these things move forward. So I think those kind of helped too.
So Dan, just clarifying, that's all new construction?
Yes.
Awesome. Jenna, have you returned? Perhaps not. Ned, if you're available. Ed Parker, Franklin County.
Yeah, so back in June, our county established an ARPA task force made up of the department heads, just like everyone else has been talking about. We were awarded funding back in July, $150,000 to construct a new shower house and for replacement of items damaged by sanitizing at our rental facility. So we are replacing all the doors and the wall boards inside the bathroom with that money.
Okay, just clarifying, how much money was it?
$150,000.
Awesome. So this is primarily updates and from losses due to COVID.
Yep, and then replacing pit latrines with a shower house and running water toilets.
Perfect. Barb Schroeder, Winnebago County.
Well, I put in for almost 1.5 million, and at this point they've obligated just over 235,000, which will replace old septic systems at 2 campgrounds and a new acquisition, and then also providing 20% match for flood structures, which are actually trail crossings on ravines. So it's kind of dual purpose, maybe a little creative, but we're excited about having that matching money. Funds that they're waiting to see what their losses are going to be, or lost revenues, and then they'll come back in January and revisit the list. And things that I still have on the list are replacing shower houses at campgrounds, and then actual new campground shower septic water. And then they also obligated through the IT department nearly $30,000 for giving us internet at two of the campgrounds. So that'll be nice also.
So the rural internet then is a sure thing. It's a go.
Yes.
And do you know, does that involve burying fiber optic, or how are they going to get it to you?
I don't think it's going to be fiber. They were talking about, they had some other methods. Sorry, I'm not an IT person. So, but they said fiber was way too expensive. It'll be better than what we have right now. So, and those two areas that are getting the wireless are where we have offices, and that's been our struggle with COVID, is being able to operate without internet. So we have routers, but they're kind of hit and miss, especially when there's tree cover in the summer. So.
Okay. Thank you. Brian Lammers.
Okay. The supervisors actually came to us and talked to us about projects. Our county initially did not put a full committee together. They kind of already knew some things going on around the county. One of the things that we've been struggling with was our irrigation system for the golf course, which was nearly falling into the lake. It's been in place since 1991. So we're going to replace that. Along with the shower house down at Little Wall Lake Park, because of we've had a existing shower house that was built in 1987. And since all of our renovation, that was the last piece to finish up that campground. So that's going to go into place, and along with 4 different playgrounds. So we were allocated roughly around $700,000 right off the bat to get this accomplished. So playgrounds have been ordered. They'll be in the spring. Shower house is going to be approved here at the December board meeting. We'll move forward with those orders, getting those done. And then hopefully the irrigation system will be done yet this winter.
So Brian, if you don't mind, could you share with everybody else that's on here about your budget structure as far as tax support?
Well, first of all, the ARPA monies are not falling into our budget, so I want to make sure that's clear. Everything is ran through our county board of supervisors and the auditor's office. Outside of that, our structure is set up to where we basically run almost 2/3 off of pure revenue, and we're allocated about 1/3 of our funding through the county appropriations. So we're very revenue dependent on a year-to-year basis. COVID was one of those years, as all of us, we weren't expecting what we saw as far as the negative and the positive sides, but it really, in the end, helped our fiscal year last year, as we actually did not use any of our county tax appropriations. We were able to live off our entire revenue and still have a carryover. So it's one of those things that just kind of go up and down. Supervisors are well aware that we're probably not going to expect a financial, windfall like that. But as things open up, we're already starting to see a decline in some of our camping and other play out here at the parks.
Thanks, Brian. I see Jenna's back. Welcome back.
Thanks, Tom. Union County had some success to share about if they'd like to go next.
Hold on, here we go.
Oh, thanks for the opportunity. I don't know if you could say we've had success yet, but we're in the hunt. Union County supervisors brought everyone together, all department heads, and preliminary just asked for potential projects and preliminary cost estimates. And then they sent out a worksheet later. So everyone's requests were on the same worksheet. And all of the wish list worksheets are in front of the supervisors right now, being reviewed. At the Union County Conservation Board, we ask for 3 separate projects. One, complete electrical upgrades to 70 campsites at 3 Mile Lake, the addition of 10 full service water and sewer sites at 3 Mile Lake, and 2 housekeeping cabins, which will be 3 bedroom, 2 bath, kitchenette, and then a great room with a deck is what we have kind of scheduled out for right now. Our total ask is $900,000. Union County either was or will be allocated 2.3 million. And I don't want to jinx myself, but the word on the street is they are looking very favorable at the county conservation. I'm not sure when they will tell everyone who's going to get money and who isn't, or what they're going to do, but I know we are going to have the opportunity to go in and present orally also, just for a kind of a question and answer. And besides the worksheets that we submitted, we'll see.
Very good. Roger, what's happening in Scott County?
I guess I was just going to comment that, you know, our county received a lot of money for ARPA, just under 35 million. But we really had tough competition being in that group when they listed the projects, because they had such things as, you know, funding for low-income housing and some large capital projects the county was undertaking, like expansion of juvenile detention facility, that, you know, and our secondary roads, those county engineers, they have those shovel-ready projects that are big dollars, and they came in with, you know, asking for, I think, somewhere around 14 million of that. So we were kind of really struggling to get support, but we finally did, for trails and for water and sewer enhancements. And we did tie those directly to what we saw with COVID. I think most of us saw the increase in people and increase in trail usage. So it was hard to deny that there was a need for those type of things. So we did finally end up getting board support for those, and we asked for $2 million for trails and $2 million for water and sewer improvements throughout the park system, and they have tentatively approved all those, you know, pending engineering. Our process was a little different. I didn't take shovel-ready projects. I tried to promote this by saying these are one-time money for projects that we didn't have on our capital plan, but were things we knew we needed. And they finally agreed with that we should try to use this money for something new that we didn't have other funding opportunities already set up for. So that was one reason why they approved it. So we anticipate being busy with that, but that's also why I brought up the whole thing about the procurement. That's a whole process, and we're starting from square one now with even doing design, cost estimating, and feasibility before we're even allowed to move forward with actual final design and construction. So it'll be a long drawn out process, but we feel pretty fortunate. That's all.
Thank you for sharing. Did any other county? Oh, anybody else out there? Dan asked me to quit that, so I did. Sorry about that. Any other county want to share a project that they have?
Wright County got $140,000.
Congrats.
Just a minute, let me get my video up. So we used our $140,000 to upgrade our internet, wireless internet, in the campground. And we have a fiber optic that runs right by the park. That doesn't service the park, but we were able to tap into it. And we'll be able to have the ability to transmit up to 1 gig of internet service within the park, free of charge. And the office and the park residents.
Thank you for sharing that. Does anyone have any other questions if we don't have any other projects to report on?
One question that I have has to do with, well, for example, in our county, you know, the things I could think of that the funds could be used for would take up all the art money that our county gets. But one thing that is always hard to get money for is maintenance. And it would seem like there'd be a strong argument that due to COVID, you know, we had a doubling or so of visitors in our parks and recreational areas that, you know, of course, doubled or nearly doubled the amount of maintenance and attention needed to a lot of these places. So maybe it's more and Paul question, but would you see where a strong argument could be made and accepted that additional maintenance facilities would be something that could be argued as a COVID-related expense?
This is Jamie. I think, Dan, you could make a strong case because of that, exactly that.
Yeah, it very clearly, you know, spells out that maintenance is one of those things. That was one of the items that I recently sent down to the state auditor's office with a question on, and I've not heard back yet on that, Dan, but did address just that. But in general, as Jamie was saying, the key to anything is making that argument of why you need it on the front side is sort of their guidance as well. So.
Thank you.
So one of the questions that just came in is actually a good cue for our next thing, which is we do have a folder available on the portal that we'd like to merge some documents that have to do with ARPA funds in terms of, you know, applications that have come out from different counties as we figure out more of this procurement policy stuff. Some of that federally approved language. We want to share all that we know. So if you have documents that you're willing to share, either upload those onto the portal or, you know, send them to myself or Will, and we can do that, just so we're all working together and making things easier on each other.
Jenna, this is Matt. I just put up earlier procurement for trail stuff, so it's mainly related through trails. We received about 940,000 of COVID money from the state COVID trail fund. And we've been directed to just follow the federal policy that we would follow in like the TAP grants and those sorts of things. So, we're just following that existing guidance in federal process that way. So that's the guidelines that I shared are mainly trail related.
Thanks, Matt. So we will have a follow-up, probably a couple of emails just with shared content and information. Again, remember through My County Parks that we've got that portal to utilize for sharing files. If there aren't any other questions or comments, I do want to remind everyone, coming up in March is our next in-person County Conservation Directors Association conference down at ISAC, which is March 10th and 11th. So put that on your calendar now. Otherwise, if there's anything else for the good of the cause, speak now, or we can probably let you go for this afternoon.
I guess this is Bill from Clinton County Conservation. I do have a quick question, I guess. Sorry to be that guy that's, shooting out a question right at the end, but I guess I'm just kind of curious on the counties that have really started moving forward with this. I feel like our county, at least our board of supervisors, they kind of are doing the whole, well, we're waiting for clarification, and I mean, we've have kind of been at a standstill since July. I mean, is there any advice on trying to get moving on this? Like anything we can do to light a fire under some of our board of supervisors to get moving on this?
Well, Phil, this is Jamie. Kind of like what I said before, some of them, and we've heard from some counties, maybe similar to yours, that they're waiting for this interim final rule to be final and waiting before they can move forward on projects. And like I said earlier, and you can tell your board this, that as long as you follow the basic guidelines that have gone out all the way since July, you should feel very comfortable moving forward. And I know, again, going back to those counties that are waiting to see if that other legislation is going to pass and so forth, there's really nothing that should be holding counties back on moving forward with projects. And you can tell your board that a lot of counties are moving forward.
Thank you.
This is Barb with Winneshiek County. If I could add, I made a list of things that fit, the sewer, the water. Those were the top ones all along. So we just made a list of what our needs were in our parks that matched that. And that was an easy sell because it's kind of hard to argue. Plus, the other thing about septic, it's not real pretty, so it's not always funded through grants. And so this was something that is going to need to be replaced at some point in time. And instead of taking it out of general fund, here's an opportunity to have it paid for through the rescue plan.
And Barbara, you raise a very good point that because of this funding, it can free up a lot of dollars in your other budget lines as well.
Another argument that kind of helped move things forward too is letting your supervisors know that the sooner you know that this funding is going to be available, the sooner you can know what type of leverage you can get from other funding sources. And so by delaying, you might miss, other grant deadlines. And knowing whether you're getting federal dollars determines what other kinds of grants you want to go for. So sometimes knowing that if they're a little bit quicker in responding, it might actually bring more money into the county, can help.
And this is Jamie again, sorry to speak one more time, but I would anticipate similar to what the state of Iowa came up with for water infrastructure with that $100 million. Like I said, they've only really touched a fraction of the dollars that can be expended by the state. So I wouldn't be surprised. I know the various other state agencies. I know DNR, Iowa Finance Authority, a whole host of other agencies I know have made asks. And so the state has slowly made announcements. So there could be some other opportunities to leverage local dollars with state dollars as additional announcements are made.
Thank you. I know in
Jenna,
Clayton. Oh, sorry,
I'd
go
also
ahead.
put, sorry, Jenna, this is Matt again. I'd also put in a plug for ISAC universities coming up the end of January. I think there's only about 4 conservation directors maybe signed up for that, but it's a good opportunity for additional leadership training, and it's a good opportunity to talk to supervisors outside of the courthouse.
Thanks for making that sell for me, Matt.
No problem.
No, I was just gonna say, Phil, you're not alone. Clayton County, I know they were pretty quick to give money to the recorder's office, auditor's office for some e-filing, digital recording. But I've been told that my money is coming somewhere in the future. All right, so I put up a few announcements. Hope you can save some of those dates and just be reminded of what happens come the new year. Again, thank you all for joining today. It's good to see some of you and hear from you. If there's nothing else, we'll be closing the meeting here shortly. Thanks for hopping on.